And we're going to start off tonight with our patron, and that's Mr. Jim Sneed. And just to highlight a little bit for some of you who might have come in late that Toby talked about on that really nice video, Jim Sneed served 52 years in the food service industry here in Swain County. And during this time, he owned and operated 3 different restaurants. And with Sneed's Restaurant and Neighbors Drive-In, those were his primary restaurants. Those of us who grew up here in Swain County, after ball games, that's where you went, was to Neighbors Drive-In. And to be honest, some of us guys, that's where you went to look for girls. I mean, that was just part of the culture back then, and that was the place everybody went to hang out. But on top of that, besides great food and a good place for all of us to go, he provided many financial contributions to Swain County High School. During the 1970s and 1980s, his Neighbors Drive-In was the place to be, especially after football and basketball games. And as I mentioned, if you grew up during that era, you knew what I was talking about. But a lot of folks don't realize that Jim was also a World War II veteran serving as a sergeant in the Marine Corps. He served as the president of the Swain County Chamber of Commerce. He also was a major financial supporter of the Broyhill Children's Home. And he also helped many Swain graduates get started in careers by providing advice and even co-signing loans. And he was definitely 100% Maroon strong. One thing I want to say about Jim, on a personal level, all of you remember, or most of you do anyway, who have been here many years like some of us have, remember Pastor Tom Harris, who was on the radio every day. And back then, we didn't have a lot of tape facilities, so Tom was up there just about every day. And he was constantly telling me, Jamie, and I know you'll appreciate this, because he never mentioned really Jim's name on the radio, but he was always telling me on the side that Jim was always giving Pastor Tom money to help out with the broadcast. So Jim Sneed was always helping so many people behind the scenes that a lot of us really never knew about. Now his son Jamie is sitting to my left, and his wife Jeannie was injured today. She fell and injured herself, and she could not make it. But she wrote this really nice letter, and I want to read that to you from Jeannie here tonight. It says, "Good evening. Thank you for honoring Jim. He loved his Lord, his family, his friends, and yes, Swain football. Years ago, Swain was playing Silva. Swain made a touchdown. I was standing in front of Jim. He yelled and picked me up off the ground and kept cheering. Remember, I said years ago, Jim was a very generous person. Someone died out in the country. Jim cooked a ham and took it to them. Several days later, they called the drive-in and said, 'Tell Mr. Sneed we're out of ham.'" So, Jim was not a club joiner. His neighbors' customers were his true friends. I would like to thank the people of Swain County for their business and friendship through the years. Thank you, Jeannie Sneed. We appreciate Jamie for being here, representing his mom and his dad. Of course, Jamie had a brother, David Sneed, who was my classmate. And unfortunately, David was killed in an unfortunate car accident back when we were in high school. And we were close friends and classmates, and we grew up Maroon strong. And Jamie, believe me, a lot of us will always remember David as well. And we appreciate you and your entire family for what you have done for Swain County and Swain County High School. At this time, I believe we have Coach Boyce Dietz, who also would like to say some words about our patron this year, Mr. Jim Sneed.
I was asked to say a word or two about 2 or 3 of these folks, and Tammy told me not to get long-winded, so I won't. And most of these inductees, a great deal has been told about their accomplishments and all they've done, and when you see all of that, it's pretty darn awesome. I first want to say something about Jim Sneed. I came here in 1977, didn't know a soul hardly in Swain County, and we had a lot of needs and things that we needed to do and fix and make good and see if we could build a football program back. And there's just a lot of things we needed. I found out there's 12 or so men, maybe a few more than that, that really were people you could depend on in the community. And Jim Sneed was one of them. And of those fellas, seemed like all of them had the same, they were a little bit older, each one of them. And I won't mention those other names because, this is about Jim Sneed tonight. But those fellas had one or two things in common, and one of them is they loved kids, and they weren't selfish, and I've never seen better sport in Swain County for people that do for kids. People sometimes that didn't have money to do for them, they would give you the last dollar they had if it was something to help our athletic program of the school. I heard a saying one time, and it said, if you see a turtle on a fence post, I can guarantee you that somebody helped it get there. When you look at this athletic department and all the things that we've accomplished in the last few decades, I guarantee you we didn't get there by ourselves. There's a huge amount of people that did a lot of things for us and continue to do that to this day. That is why we are what we are, because everybody has bought in and everybody has paid something and done what they could do to make it better. I was wanting to share one thing, a little story about Jim. In 1977, the first year I coached here, the first game we played, Coach White we played Murphy, and I was 28 years old and didn't hardly know where I was at. And Murphy come over here and we beat them 12-0 and got our first win. And next week we had to go to Silva, where I'd been coaching and playing. And I went by that week to get a cheeseburger up at Jim Sneed's. And he told me, he said, now, Coach, don't get all upset now. We don't expect you to beat Silva. Said, we haven't beat them in 13 years. And said, now, I know you want to win. No, but now, everybody understands that we're not going to whip them. And I can't remember the score. These Manly boys can, but seemed like it's 28-7 or something like that. We beat Silva that night. And our bus broke down, and we brought their activity bus back home. So we beat them and stole their bus and brought it back too. And the first person I went to see Monday was Jim, and he was tickled to death that we'd won that game. And from then on, I'd see him the next year, and he never did mention we can't get them again. It's always, we're going to get them. And but he was a great friend, and he was always, anytime we needed anything, all you had to do is go ask him. And he was like Mr. Bretnaw and Barney Rentz and all those fellas. He was a businessman, and he'd always ask you, now, what are you going to use this money for? And if it was for something that was good, and if it's something for kids, that's all you had to tell him. And he helped you every way he could. And I'm very appreciative, and I can see him today, and y'all can too, in that restaurant working and frying hamburgers and that smile of his. And he was real proud of Swain County, and he was proud of the athletes. And I am so grateful that we were able to put him in the Hall of Fame. The only thing bad about some of these inductees, and I'm glad these are here, I wish Jim would have known this. I wish he could have been here tonight to accept this. Thank y'all.
And now we have Toby Burrell, if he would, come on stage and present the Hall of Fame induction plaque to Jamie Sneed, Jim Sneed's son.